The new NBA 2K ratings are out, and let's just say the Pelicans didn't exactly get the respect they probably deserve. It's Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Friday, final show of the week, and we are covering a bunch of stuff here. We're going to first look at the NBA 2K ratings that are out. We've got the numbers for Zion Williamson, DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy, Jeremiah Fears, and more. We're going to break down what those kind of mean for the team, and it means a little bit more than you think. Then we want to get into the Pelicans having a new head coach for their G League team. This is going to be pretty pivotal this year in a way that you might not have thought about before. And then there's a new Ochsner facility near the Pelicans and say it's that good or bad. We're going to cover it all in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. I see y'all in there every single day. I really appreciate it. The comments are awesome to see when people are saying they're an everydayer and everything. It gives me a lot of love here, and I really appreciate it, especially this time of year when it's a little bit slower. It's nice to see the community still bumping around this team. So let's get into the ratings for NBA 2K26 coming out. We have the ratings for 5 players so far. We don't know the other ones yet. We have estimates for what they're going to be, but we have 5 players as NBA 2K has released their top 100 ratings. And in those top 100 players are 4 players for New Orleans: Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy, DeJounte Murray, and Herb Jones. We also have the rating for Jeremiah Fears, though he's not in the top 100. But those players are in the top 100 for the New Orleans Pelicans. The best rated player on the team is obviously going to be Zion Williamson here at an 87. I actually find this kind of interesting, right? At 87 on the surface feels fine. You know, he's still recognized as a very, very good player in the top 40 there. But here's the problem, right? When Zion plays, he is by far one of the most efficient, effective scorers in the NBA, period. Just that good. He bends the defense. He has a court gravity in a way that most players don't or are unable to. And I don't know if that 87 rating reflects his dominance when he plays. And when he played at the end of last season, we saw the best version of Zion Williamson that we have ever seen before. 87 being his rating feels like they're putting him there because they don't know what to do with him. And this is going to be something we talk about when Locked On releases their top 100 players of where does Zion rank. I know where I ranked him. I'm going to save that for another show. I don't know where the rest of people did. They factored in injuries to that. And it feels like even though you don't really need to do that in a video game, particularly when you look at DeJounte Murray's number, his rating, for Zion, it feels like they're dinging him in a sense because of that. They're dinging him for health. And I get it. Availability matters. But in a video game that's just supposed to replicate on-court talent, Zion Williamson actually feels underrated in NBA 2K26, in my opinion. Here, look, these ratings are a little bit silly. It's fun to talk about, especially this time of year, which is why we're doing it. But that feels like it just speaks to the level of degree discourse narrative around Zion and how that has really, really shifted and people are just kind of out on him, essentially. That's kind of what this feels like here. Coming up next in terms of their ratings, though, is Trey Murphy, who's overall an 82, and that feels a little bit low. This is someone who averaged over 20 points per game last season. he's going to be going into a much more starring role this year. You've seen the leap that he's taken in terms of starting to become a 3-level scorer. Needs to create a little bit more for himself and for others, but he's doing a lot of what you want him to do and growing in the way that you want him to grow. And he's poised for a pretty breakout year. He won't win most improved player, but he averaged 21.2 points per game. He did that, by the way, on 16 shot attempts per game. That's insane efficiency right there. And so to kind of have him where he is, I don't absolutely love that, right? He averaged 1.3125, did the math, points per shot attempt. That is insane efficiency. He should be rated higher, especially with the leap that he's going to take this season. After that, it's Herb Jones, an 81 overall. This is a video game. They're not going to accurately represent defense. Herb Jones is actually graded out as one of the better perimeter defenders in the league, but his offense has just been inconsistent, and that's a big reason why he just doesn't have that kind of rating here. Defensive ratings don't really raise and pop that overall number up in a video game in the way that they probably should and what his value can be. But if he starts just making some shots, he's a special player. Look, right? Ask Kevin Durant, ask Luka Doncic of how he's defended them and others, Paul George. Herb Jones should be higher. The fourth one in the top 100 I thought was honestly a little bit the most surprising name to me, and that is DeJounte Murray, who's also an 81, down a little bit from years past, probably due to the injury, but 2K really likes Murray. Really likes Murray as a guy that can be a two-way kind of player. So he's probably propped up by the defense being up there, along with the ability of the offensive ability that he has. It's worth noting we don't have a rating for Jordan Poole yet. He's probably going to come in at an 80 and 81, but be just outside the top 100 players here. But he's in the mix. So the Pelicans are kind of looking at 5 guys, 80 or better that, are going to play significant roles when they return for this team. And we'll talk more about Murray's return on Monday, because did you see the video from him? That was genuinely eye-opening to me. The other rating we have is Jeremiah Fears being rated a 73. He also has one of the faster speed ratings, faster dribbling ability ratings. The dude can dribble. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do out there on the court. Rookies usually don't make a massive impact in terms of wins and losses, and you're seeing 2K factor that in with Jeremiah Fears. But he's the type of player that I think could grow really quickly and quickly establish a role here on a not contending team, but playoff team, I guess is what we're saying about Jeremiah Fears. But 73, they gave us the top 5, top 10 rookies. Derek Queen is not in that. Given he was 13, taking 13, probably should be kind of close to that. But I think people, view him as a little bit of a polarizing prospect here, and with his injury maybe not going to be ready, I should say, to start the year. That's going to kind of keep things up in the air for him, leading to probably a smaller, rating for him when it comes to it. But Fears coming in at a 73, Herb Jones at an 81, Murray at an 81, Trey Murphy at an 82, and then Zion Williamson at an 87. Don't know what guys like Yves Missi, Jose Alvarado, Kevon Looney, or Sadiq Bey are going to be. Probably similar numbers to last year. Jose was a 78, Bey was a 77, Looney a 77 as well. So not a top quality starter. Missi ended up kind of being right around an 80-ish number at the end of last year after playing a ton of minutes. So the Pelicans have some talent here. It's just not elite level talent, but decent enough talent, which I think is kind of how people are viewing this team overall. Let me know what you think about the ratings, particularly Zion Williamson, Jeremiah Fears. Should Jordan Poole be rated higher? Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube. And speaking of Fears and Queen and some of the rookies, we have a new head coach for the Pelicans G League affiliate, and that might be more important this year than in others. I'll tell you why. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Gametime. You ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or just even invite a bigger group to go with you. Gametime is going to make it possible. I did that this summer when I spent a little bit of time in LA. I decided I wanted to go to a Dodger game and see Shohei Ohtani. So got in the car, drove to Dodger Stadium, and on the way there, the fiance just opened up Gametime, bought 2 tickets that were great seats at a great price, because Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple, and prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. So with those clear last minute deals, you're saving an absolute ton. So Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. You can start planning for the NBA season or the Saints season as well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. For your second listen today, it's Locked On NBA. I'm actually on there every Friday. We're covering 3 teams that were like, what are they doing? What are the Kings doing? The Raptors and the Chicago Bulls, because they're all in the news for a variety of reasons that make you scratch your head. So make Locked On NBA your second listen today. There's no off season in the association. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we have an update after TJ Saint left the Pelicans G League affiliate to go take a spot as part of Mike Brown's staff over with the New York Knicks. They have hired, per Mike Scotto of Hoops Hype, they are promoting Joe Barrer from assistant coach to head coach of the squadron. Barrer's worked in the G League for a long time. He's been with Iowa. He worked his way around a little bit. More recently, he was an assistant coach for the Lakeland Magic for 4 years before being named their head coach for 2 seasons. So he has head coaching experience. He's kind of been in this position before where he worked as an assistant and then was elevated. He's been an assistant with the squadron for the past 2 years. So this is someone who's familiar with that organization, kind of gets it, and I like that continuity with the G League team. And here's the thing. It's going to be important this year, in my opinion. The Pelicans have 3 rookies that might spend some time in the G League. You know, as this team is going to try and push for the playoffs, you might not play rookies. For better or worse, you might not play rookies. That's a debate for another day, y'all. We're not going to get into it too much right now. Rookies just don't tend to help you win. So if you need to get them game time, and the Pelicans say they're over, they're exceeding expectations, and Willie Green is not going to just throw a rookie into the rotation. He's going to go with a Jose Alvarado over a Jeremiah Fears. They're going to go with a, whatever big man it is, whether it's Carlo or somebody else, to kind of get some of those backup big man minutes instead of Derek Queen. And you have a couple guys, maybe it's a Jaden Springer or Jalen McDaniels on the wing that you want to use instead of a Micah Peavy. Those guys need to get minutes for their development. They need to play. They need to stay sharp. And look, there's going to be injuries and they're going to get time, so you don't want them just kind of going in cold off of the bench. The G League is where you're going to send those players. The G League is where you're going to send those players and try and develop them. And you need to make sure that everyone is aligned on your G League squad. And I think this is the type of continuity here that really works for a team to develop these guys. New Orleans has done a very good job of using the squadron to develop players, whether it's a two-way or an undrafted guy or what have you, into being NBA guys. You've really seen them do this for a while now, going back to Kenrich Williams in the Dell Demps era here. But you also have the success story of Najee Marshall, of Jose Alvarado, and some others as well. So I like that they are going to be using these guys and doing all of that right now. They have Bryce McGowan's on a two-way, Hunter Dickinson on a two-way, Trey Alexander on a two-way. Work on developing those guys alongside Fears, Peavy, and Queen. That's 6 players that could potentially have an impactful role for New Orleans next year. And look, when Queen comes back, are you going to be ready just to throw him into the NBA? Probably not, given there's some growth that he needs. They might, not saying they will, they might start him off in the G League and see if, he can get his feet wet and build up a little bit of confidence there after at times a shaky summer league, right? Same for Jeremiah Fears. If he needs to develop some confidence, and he has no shortage of confidence, so I don't know if he's going to actually need to do that, maybe you send him to the G League for a period of time. Now, if this team isn't competitive, I don't think you need to worry about this as much. But given that, look at the 2K ratings. Fears is a 73. There's a lot of room to grow there, and he's going to need minutes on the court. I think he's going to be too good for the G League, truthfully, after a period of time. And the G League, when you light it up in there, this is me talking to people around the league. The G League is an entirely different game from the NBA. So when you send players down and they put up like 2 games of 20 plus points, you don't need to read too much into that. We saw that before with Kyra Lewis Jr., would go down there when he was coming back from the knee injury, the ACL, whatever it was, and like lit it up and then still couldn't crack a rotation or be an impactful NBA player. So it's not like the best way to test it out or see what guys are capable of, but you need to keep players sharp. You need to give them minutes. And I definitely think in the G League, you'll be able to do that for some of these guys. It will say something about this team if Fears and Queen in particular, right? Those are the two we're going to focus on. No offense to Micah Peavy or anybody else. But Fears and Queen are the guys that do need to contribute to this team sooner rather than later. So if they are not being played by head coach Willie Green, unless the Pelicans are like 15-5 and, even 15-10, something like that, massively exceeding expectations, you need to play these guys, and I would be worried about organizational alignment with head coach Willie Green if these guys aren't getting minutes and then Joe Dumars is like, well, let's send them down to the G League because we want to play them. These are guys that do need NBA minutes too, and it might be best just to include them into the rotation, in Queen's case, when he's healthy. That's kind of the big risk that this team is taking by, attempting a 2-timeline approach. If it was just a year for development, you could slot these guys in as starters almost from day one, maybe halfway through the year, and you wouldn't stress about it. Cool. This is what we're going to do. It's much better to do. It's much easier to do a rebuild and be bad when you have some of those young players already in place, and fans can watch Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen grow and develop, and they have young guys to root for. That's how you do this and still have fan buy-in from all of it. So the Pelicans are in position to do that, except you don't have a first-round pick next year, so there's no point in being bad. You almost have to be good in a sense. And if you're not good, the only way you kind of salvage not having that first round pick next year is by playing Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears and seeing the improvement in them on almost a night to night basis, or have, at the end of the year be like, you know what? It was totally worth giving up next year's first round pick because look how good Derek Queen is. For better or worse, they'll deny this. Queen will deny this. They've put a heavy burden on Derek Queen's shoulders with this trade. That's a lot to live up to. Almost no player else has this kind of pressure other than maybe Cooper Flagg in this draft class. And that's just because he came in with so much hype and was the number 1 overall pick. Dylan Harper doesn't have this kind of pressure on him. Even Jeremiah Fears doesn't have this kind of pressure on him because Fears was just taken 7 overall. They didn't give up more to go and get him, and now he's got to live up to that sort of thing. That's what we're seeing here with Derek Queen. For better or worse, that's what it is. Will they do it? We'll find out. The fact that he's not, we don't have his rating, it's going to be worse than a 73, 72 as a rookie in 2K. Not that those ratings are the be-all, end-all, but it says something there. We're going to see how this all works out. It's going to be a really interesting, uncertain year for the New Orleans Pelicans. One way to make it more certain, though, would be better health. And Ochsner is building a new facility next to the Pelicans and Saints practice facility. I'll tell you what that is. Why I actually like this. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And don't forget, you can watch the Locked On Pelicans podcast on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every single weekday at 10:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. I was actually over by the Smoothie King Center the other day, and looked up and saw like the big billboard with it on there, which was really cool to see. I hadn't seen it like that close in person yet, which was pretty awesome. And don't forget about the Locked On Pelicans fan survey. I forgot to mention that earlier. Taking the pulse of the team. This is going to lead to probably a week's worth of shows. This is your way to make your feelings heard about this team. We are going to read off the results of all the questions. There's a couple like open-ended like questions if you want to type your thoughts in there too. I'll clean those up and read some of those out there so that we can kind of share a lot of the feedback here and get the pulse of what this fan base is feeling. So health, in the survey and looking at the results, like hundreds of responses here. I've noticed there's a theme, right? Health. One of the things that's like, what worries you most about this upcoming season? And it's just everyone's writing health. Not everyone, there's other things, but that's a big part of it. And I totally get it. Big thing that concerns me too, right, is going to be health. So the Pelicans have partnered with Ochsner for a very, very long time. And while Ochsner isn't like the medical doctors to the team, they provide some services. Players, if they want surgery, need surgery, they're all allowed to get second opinions on every single injury and go get their own doctors. And that's frankly what most players do. They kind of have their people. They tend to fall with those people. So I know a lot of people want to be like, Ochsner's to blame for all this. Ochsner as an organization has very little to do other than like a naming marketing partnership with the team. The doctors are the Pelicans. They have some team physicians there in the moment, but they can get usually surgeries performed by other folks unless the player wants it to be by these people. So it's not like the decisions are being made by Ochsner and Ochsner alone. But this was just released the other day. In partnership with the New Orleans Saints and New Orleans Pelicans, Ochsner Health is excited to announce plans for a new destination for comprehensive and expanded healthcare services in Jefferson Parish. The facility, Ochsner Medical Complex Airline, will be located at the corner of Airline Drive and Tom Benson Way in Metairie, adjacent to the Ochsner Sports Performance Center, the practice facility for the Saints and Pelicans. This is also in partnership with the Dr. James Andrew and Andrews Medicine and the Andrews Institute as well. What's exciting about this is that this facility is really going to just expand things, right? This is going to be, a highest standard of care, as they say, that's going to be here to help the professional athletes, but also the local community, which is really cool too. So why does this matter? Why is this a good thing, particularly if you're someone who's like, I hate Ochsner, I don't trust Ochsner, even though I don't think that's a really valid thing, truthfully. Look, more facilities, expanded facilities, more equipment, more imaging devices, all of just this. I'm not a doctor, right? All of that stuff, having that close by, in close proximity, is just a very good thing, right? More doctors around that can get more opinions, can give more insight into all of that. That is a fantastic thing for this team. More people that can be involved or at least give opinions on it, I think is going to be a useful thing. That's just more support. This team, for better or worse, because of the bad luck they've had with injuries, needs the more support. So I like this sort of thing being built. This is going to be construction of the $45.6 million complex is going to begin later this year, anticipated opening in 2027. Think about that, right? You're going to have this giant medical facility right by the team facility where they can collaborate more and be more involved, I think, with everything. This is a great thing for the team, right? This just serves to add just a more comprehensive solution to potentially what's been, a problem for this Pelicans team. I think a lot of the injury stuff is bad luck. Herb Jones was on the floor, got landed on and hurt his shoulder. Trey Murphy was on the floor. Someone hurt his shoulder, right? Like there's nothing that Ochsner nor anyone can do about that sort of like in-game fluke injury. But can this help with some of the soft tissue injuries? Potentially. Maybe you need certain equipment that you don't have at the facility, but it's going to be there and you can just go over and use it. That type of stuff is really a fantastic thing to have immediate access to and right there to make it just easier for everybody to hopefully keep this team healthy. I'm not concerned about Ochsner personally, knowing what like the lack of involvement other than their name kind of being on a lot of things here. So I'm not stressed about that. I think this is the type of thing that can really only help this team a little bit. And look, they need it. This team's success this year, more than anything, is going to come down to Zion Williamson and is he playing? If he plays 65 plus games, the threshold for an award, this team can be competitive. There's enough talent here. If he doesn't play, even if Trey takes a massive leap, and we're going to be doing a bunch of shows about Trey Murphy in the near future. Y'all love him in the survey. I like him too, so I get it. That's the type of thing that, even if he takes a massive leap, you're still going to need other people out there. And it's Zion Williamson, particularly with his court gravity. So keeping Zion healthy is going to be important. A lot of keeping Zion healthy is going to be on Zion, right? Is he doing the stretching that he probably needs to be doing? Is he taking care of his body to the best degree that he is? Is he getting enough sleep? Is he, is the nutrition right? And I'm not getting into the weight issues because I don't really care about that nearly as much. But seeing that version of Zion we saw at when he came back from the hamstring injury last year was impressive, right? That's where you look at his 87 in rating in 2K and you're like, it's too low. It's way too low. He can be that good and that impactful of a player. He is that good and that impactful of a player, but he's got to play. And that's a lot of this is on him to be able to do that. And hopefully we're going to see that from him this year because, look, you don't really have – failure is not really an option this year for the team. So if he can do that, I'm going to feel really good about, what they're capable of accomplishing this year. And hopefully we're going to see that from them because I would absolutely love – to see this team make the playoffs and kind of prove the haters wrong and all of that. So we'll see what ends up happening here. What do you think about the health of this team? Do you like this move with Ochsner and the Saints and Pelicans? Let me know in the comments down below. And that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans, this week of Locked On Pelicans. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate y'all listening. I'll be back with y'all next week.